contact came in at 3:12 station time, and my first thought was that the sensor rating had made an error. I was 3 hours into a 12-hour assessment shift aboard the Unbroken Ledger, the Veth Conclave's primary cataloging cruiser for the outer corridor, when the ping arrived on my secondary screen. A single hull, sublight drift, no transponder signal, no registry beacon, no approach clearance filed with any of our relay stations in the past 60 days. The mass reading put it somewhere between a heavy cargo hauler and a mid-class freighter. The thermal signature was cold, not powered down cold, the particular cold of a vessel that had been running on minimal systems for a very long time. I flagged it to the duty officer. He looked at the reading for 4 seconds, and then looked at me. "Impound and catalog," he said. That was the Veth Conclave's answer to most things. We had the largest cross-referenced vessel registry in the known corridor. 419,000 individual hull classifications, dated in real time across 11 relay stations. If a ship existed, we had a file on it. If a ship did not have a file, it did not technically exist. And things did not exist in Veth space were impounded until they did. I transmitted the interceptor order to the forward screen of 340 patrol cruisers that forms our standard corridor assessment wing, and I watched a tactical display as 18 of them peeled smoothly out of formation and curved toward the contact point. 18 ships against one unlit freighter. The math was absurd, but the Conclave did not do absurd. It did thorough. Thorough was the point. Thorough was the budget justification, the mission statement, the thing carved above the door of every assessor, Academy on the homeworld. The freighter did not respond to hails. It did not accelerate. It did not alter course. It simply drifted, the way derelicts drift, patient and indifferent in the way that only dead things or very old things manage to be. Subsess's Wreath, seated at the station to my left, pulled up the visual feed from the lead cruiser's forward array and laughed. Not a polite sound. A genuine, brief, dismissive laugh. "Look at the hull plating," she said. I looked. She was not wrong to find it amusing. The freighter, if it could be called that with any confidence, was a patchwork disaster. Hull sections in at least 6 different alloy colors, none of them matching. Weld seams visible from 500 kilometers thick as anchor cable. The kind of repair work done by someone with access to a cutting torch and no particular aesthetic concern. One of the sensor arrays along the dorsal ridge was bent at roughly 30 degrees from true. A running light on the port side was still cycling, blinking in a slow, arrhythmic pattern that suggested either a failing power relay or a complete lack of interest in regulatory compliance. Ship's name was stenciled on the hull in letters large enough to read from our position. Careth's Folly. The lettering was crooked. "Human registry format," Wreath said, cross-checking the stencil style against our archive. "Pre-contact era font. Whatever this is, it is very old. Someone wants it to appear very old." "Does it matter?" the duty officer said from across the room. "Not for impound purposes," she admitted. It did not matter. The Conclave did not differentiate between a genuinely ancient derelict and a ship attempting to present as one. Both were unregistered. Both were impounded. The archive consumed them equally. I watched the 18 cruisers close to boarding distance. On the communications channel, our lead intercept commander, Senior Assessor Veth Perun, 22 years in corridor enforcement, a man who had personally overseen the cataloging of more than 9,000 individual hulls, transmitted the standard boarding declaration. Shh, he sounded faintly bored. I had heard him use that same tone on distress-flagged freighters and on ships actively trying to flee. Boredom was his professional register. The Conclave trained it into you. Unregistered vessel Careth's Folly. Transvatation of Corridor Transit Statute 7 through 17. Cut your drive, extend your docking collar, prepare to receive an assessment team. Non-compliant result in the freighter's hull split open, not violently, not explosively, the way a seed casing splits, along seams that had always been there, that had been designed to be there, that had been waiting for this precise moment with the patience of a thing that had been built for exactly one purpose and had held that purpose for however many years it had spent, looking like a derelict freighter drifting through corridors it was never supposed to survive. The hull sections folded outward. 12 panels I counted later, reviewing the sensor record. 12 pre-cut sections on hydraulic hinges, swinging wide in the slow geometric logic of a flower opening in time-lapse, each one revealing the structure beneath. And the structure beneath was not the cargo bay of a freighter. The structure beneath was a compression frame, a carrier shell, the kind of internal architecture that exists for one purpose: to hold other ships in folded launch configuration, stacked and nested and waiting, their drives cold, their weapons locked, their crews presumably sitting in the dark for however long the transit had taken, doing whatever human crews do when they are pretending to be a battered old freighter in a corridor belonging to someone else. First warship cleared the compression frame at 031 ton station time. By 0318, there were 5. By 0319, there were 11. 11. I want to be precise about what happened in the 12 seconds between the hull opening and the moment I fully understood what I was looking at, because those 12 seconds are the part of the record that I have been asked to clarify on 4 separate occasions. And I want to be accurate. In those 12 seconds, I did not panic. I did not, as Sub-Assessor Reith later claimed in her debrief, make any audible sound. What I did was look at my tactical display and attempt to reconcile what it was showing me with any classification in the archive. There was no classification. Not for the compression carrier shell. We had theoretical files on carrier-type vessels, and the Folly's outer hull now cross-referenced against 7 partial entries from pre-contact survey data. None of them confirmed. All of them listed under the archive tag unverified. Origin uncertain. But the warships themselves. The 11 hulls now holding formation in a loose hemisphere around the opened carrier shell. Drives lit, silhouettes unlike anything in 419, sealed entries. The lead ship was enormous. I will not use a comparative figure from our own fleet, because there is no comparative figure that does not either flatter it or diminish it. It was simply too large for the context. A warship of that displacement class does not belong in a corridor transit lane. It belongs in a naval reserve depot, or in orbit over a heavily fortified strategic installation, or in some category of vessel that requires its own subcategory in the archive, which we did not have. The other 10 hulls ranged from frigate mass to something I can only describe as a medium dreadnought, though that classification also does not exist in our registry as an active type. They moved into position with the kind of quiet, unhurried precision that I associate with automated systems, or with people who have done the same thing so many times that it requires no discussion. No thruster flare that I would have expected, no visible orientation burn, they simply settled. The way a hand of cards settles when someone who knows what they are doing lays them on the table. Then my console produced a sound I had not heard outside of a training simulation. A targeting lock tone, passive acquisition, from us. I checked, reflexively before I understood the direction. From them. 11 separate targeting solutions, already resolved, already locked, distributed across our 340 cruisers with a coverage geometry that I spent the better part of the next hour trying to reconstruct and still could not fully account for. Every cruiser in our formation, not just the 18 that had moved to intercept, but all 340, including the unbroken ledger, had at least one targeting solution on it. Some had 3. Senior Assessor Perroon's channel was silent for 7 seconds. Then he said very quietly, "Ledger, are you reading this?" "Yes," I said. "They were already locked when the hull opened." "Yes," I said. He did not say anything else for a while. The communication came from the lead warship at 0321. It arrived on the standard corridor hail frequency, in unaccented Veth standard. Hence, not translated, not synthesized, but spoken by someone who had learned it, and spoke it the way a senior diplomat speaks. A language, correctly and without warmth. Conclave Assessment Wing. This is Commander Sarah Valk of the Pale Meridian, operating under authority of the Iron Meridian Strike Group, Terran Naval Command. You have hailed us, which we appreciate. We will now conduct a brief correction to your registry. I looked at Reith. She was looking at her screen with an expression I had not seen on her face before. Not fear, exactly. Something that precedes fear. The cognitive state of a person who has just discovered that the category they were using to understand the world does not apply. "We are transmitting a data package," Commander Valk continued. contains registry entries for all 11 hulls currently in your scan range, formatted to your archive standard. We ask that you integrate them. This is not a request that benefits from a lengthy decision process. The data package arrived while she was still speaking. 11 entries, hull classifications, displacement figures, armament specifications. The armament specifications alone ran to 47 lines per vessel, and I read the first 14 lines of the lead ship's entry before I stopped, because the figures past line 8 were ones I did not have comparative context for, and reading them was not making me feel that I was gaining useful information. Transmitted the package to the archive integration desk and watched the progress indicator. You will note, Commander Valk said, the Careth's Folly is also included. Entry 46,012 in the carrier type classification. She is not a derelict. She is a precision instrument. She would appreciate not being hailed in that tone again. In the tactical display, the Careth's Folly's stripped carrier shell had already begun to reassemble, the hull panels, folding back inward in the same slow hydraulic sequence, pairing, I understood, for another transit. Another corridor. Another 340-ship assessment wing that would see a battered freighter and feel, the comfortable weight of a universe that matched its archive. The archive integration completed at 0327, 47 seconds. Integration confirmed, said the archive rating, in the voice of someone reporting a routine update. Good, said Commander Valk. We are going to jump in 4 minutes. I would suggest your cruisers hold current position during that window. Plume interaction with 11 drives at jump initiation is uncomfortable at close range. Transmitted the hold order to all 340 cruisers without being asked. Nobody questioned it. We held. At 0331, the Iron Meridian jumped. All 11 warships, in a coordinated sequence that took 9 seconds from first drive flare to the last jump trace fading off my screen. The Careth's Folly went with them. Third to last, her carrier shell sealed, her running light still blinking in that slow, arrhythmic pattern on the port side. The corridor was empty. I sat for a while looking at the display. Reith had pulled up the arc entry for the Pale Meridian, the lead ship, and was reading the armament specifications with the expression of someone completing a task they had assigned themselves, because the alternatives was to simply sit with what had just happened. Senior Assessor Perun's channel opened at 0334. Assessor Sol, prepare a full incident log. Already begun, I said. Classification for the encounter. I thought about that. The archive had a standard classification for intercept events, outcomes sorted by hull, disposition, compliance status, registry integration result. I scrolled through the options. Routine registry update, I said. Classification added. No shots fired, no casualties, no non-compliance. A pause. That is technically accurate, Perun said. Yes. Another pause. How many targeting locks did they have on the ledger at peak? I checked the sensor log. 4, I said. He closed the channel. I filed the incident log at 0341 and returned to my assessment shift. The corridor was quiet. The 340 cruisers reformed their standard transit screen with the smooth, automatic efficiency of a formation that had drilled the maneuver 10 times, and did not need to be told what came next. Distance, from a relay station feed, from an archive pull, from any position that lacked the sensor data of the last 22 minutes, would have looked exactly like a normal morning in the outer Dravan corridor. The archive now held 47 new entries, 11 active warship classifications, 1 carrier shell classification, and 35 subordinate hull variants cross-referenced under a category that had not existed in the registry 6 hours ago. The category header, auto-generated by the integration system from the data package Commander Valk had transmitted, read, Iron Meridian Strike Group, Terran Naval Command, status, active. Sub-Assessor Reith stared at that header for a long time. They built the Careth's Folly to look like that, she said finally. It was not a question. Yes, I said. They spent time and resources and engineering capability on a compression carrier shell that looks like a derelict freighter, so that someone would hail it in a bored voice and bring 18 cruisers to boarding distance. That appears to be correct. She was quiet for a moment, and then they corrected our archive. Yes, that was the mission, she said. Not a provocation, not a territorial display. They came into our corridor in a ship designed to be underestimated, waited until we had committed our intercept wing, and then they corrected our archive, and then they left. I did not have anything to add to that analysis. It was accurate, and it was the part of the incident that I had been sitting with since 0331. And I did not think I was going to stop sitting with it for some time. The corridor, the archive told me, had been quiet for 60 years. The Veth Conclave had moved through it for 60 years, cataloging, impounding, classifying. We had 419,000 hull entries. We had a budget justification, and a mission statement, and a thing carved above the door of every assessor. Academy. We had not had an entry for the Iron Meridian. We did now.